Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. I hope everything is fine with you and your family. Today we are going to study about interaction of organisms with the biotic factors in the evolution of life in our course Evolution. So let's start our today lecture. Now come to discuss the biotic factors. As you all know, biotic factor is the living part of the world. And what is mean by the biotic relationships? Actually, the relationship meaning the connection between two objects, and bio meanings living or the life. So the biotic relationship is the relationships between two living organisms. The biotic factors includes animals, plants, fungi, protista, animals, and the bacteria. As you all know, this type of organisms are classified under different kingdoms like kingdom Plantae, kingdom fungi, kingdom protista, kingdom Animalia, and the kingdom Bacteria. Kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera includes all the prokaryotes. Kingdom Animalia includes all the multicellular eukaryotic heterotrophic organisms. Protista have fungi-like, plant-like, and the animal-like living organisms, while the kingdom fungi includes all the living organisms that do not have chlorophyll and they have cell wall. So the kingdom fungi have all the living organisms which have cell wall and they are non-chlorophyll. They are heterotrophic or they can be saprophytic. All the living organisms which have ability to manufacture their own food material by the process of photosynthesis, and they are multicellular eukaryotic organisms. They are called plants. Plants can produce oxygen for all other living organisms, right? And it is a basic. It becomes a basic food for the animals and for the human beings. So plants is the primary source of life, and while the bacteria and fungi can help in the decomposition of plants dead parts, animals dead parts, and human beings dead parts, and also it can be parasitic for animals, for plants, and for human beings. It can create different diseases in animals, plants, and human beings. So it can be harmful or it can be beneficial for other group of organisms. So this relationship forms a community. So what is a community? A community is the biotic part of an ecosystem, and it consists of all the population of all the species that live and interact in the ecosystem. It also includes their relationships with each other. All organisms in an ecosystem are connected in one way or another. In fact, population of different species generally interact in a complex web of relationships. The relationships between species in communities are important factor in natural selection and help shape the evolution of the interacting species. There are three major types of community relationships and the biotic relationships. Number one, competition. Number two, predation. Number three, symbiosis. Competition occurs between two organisms have the same niche. Niche means a niche is the role the species plays in a community, and it includes the type of food it eats, where it lives, where it reproduces, and its relationships with other species. So each species occupies a niche in the community. So Nietzsche describes the role of an organism plays in a community. The organism, different type of organism compete for their food resources, for their shelter, for their habitat, for the reproduction. So this interaction is called competition. So the loser will either have to leave, get another niche, or die. Predation. Predation is the process in or the relationship, community relationships or the biotic relationships in which organisms that hunt another organism for food. So predation is the community relationships or the biotic relationships in which organisms in one species called the predators consume tissues of organisms in another species called the prey. Often this means killing the prey and eating all or most of the prey organisms. Predators are often prey on their own. Predators-prey relationships tends to keep the population of both species in balance, and each population is a limiting factor on the other populations. As a result, the prey population starts to decreases. Then, as few prey becomes available, the predator population declines as well. So, predators and prey are likely to have adaptation to predation that evolved through natural selection. Predator adaptations help them capture prey, whereas prey adaptations help them avoid predators. Symbiosis is the interaction between two different species living in close association with one another. So, the symbiosis is a close relationship between two organisms of different species in which at least one of the organisms benefits for the other organism, and the relationships may be beneficial or harmful, or it may have no effect. There are three basic types of symbiosis like mutualism, commensalism, and the parasitism. Competition. Competition occurs when two organisms compete or fight for resources like food, shelter, for reproduction, etc. Not all resources are food. For example, plants must be planted a certain distance or apart, or they compete for growing space and soil nutrients. So, in competition, organisms of a community will compete for the available resources both within a species and between different species. Competition between species will affect the niche of both species. Organisms can compete for varying resources, food, mates, space, or access to light or chemical nutrients. The more similar the needs of the competitors. In any environment or in any ecosystem, different organisms, different plants, species also compete with each other for their resources like food, space, light, chemical nutrients, etc. Competition is a biotic relationship, can have a substantial impact on population of organisms. When a resource is limited, organism may compete for it in some form. So competition are of two types. It can occur, as we have discussed, interspecific competition between amongst individuals of the different species, and intra-specific competition. It is the competition amongst individuals of the same species. So the competition occurs between between these individuals of the same species and between among the different species of the same community. Another more similar and the needs of the competitors, the competition between them tends to be interference competition and exploitation competition. In interference competition, the competition occurs in which organism actively fight over a resources, while in exploitation competition, or it occurs when one organism takes up the resources passively and prevent others for gaining access to it. So this type of interference and the exploitation competition helps in the process of evolution, and that supports the process of evolution, because gradually those organisms which compete to the other organism for their resources, it helps in the survival chances. It can help in the extinction of old species and can support the speciation of or the evolvement of the new species. Predations. Predation is the process in which predators are the animals or the plants that hunt another animals or plants for food, and prey is the animal or the plant that is eaten by another or by the predators. So prey populations will change in response to each other's population. Predation is when one organism consumes another in order to obtain energy and nutrients. The presence or absence of predators and prey will influence the distribution of species in a habitat. Predation requires one individual, the predator, to kill and eat another individual. These are the examples of carnivorous plants, which is carnivorous and which is predators. Symbiosis is an interaction characterized by two or more species living purposefully in direct contact with each other. The term symbiosis includes a broad range of species interactions but typically refers to some major types. So, symbiosis is the relationship or the connection between two different species living in close association with one another, and it is association between two kinds of organism that last over a period of time is called symbiosis. And it is a relationship between two organisms, and at least one organism benefits from it. Sym means live together and bio means life. So symbiosis means live together. Here is the type of symbiosis. Symbiosis is an interaction characterized by two or more species during purposefully in direct contact with each other, and this interaction occurs typically of three major types: mutualism, commensalism, and the parasitism. Mutualism, where both or all individuals benefit from the relationships. Mutualism is a symbiotic interaction where both of all individuals benefit from the relationships, and mutualism can be considered obliged or the facultative. But be aware that sometimes the term symbiosis is used specifically to mean mutualism. Species evolved in obligate mutualism cannot survive without relationships, while facultative mutualist species can survive individually when separated, but often not as well. The commensalism is an interaction in which one individual benefit while the other is neither helped or nor harmed. For example, orchids, examples of epiphytes found in tropical rainforests, grow on the branches of trees in order to the excess light, but the presence of the orchids does not affect the trees. Commensalism can be difficult to identify because the individual that benefits may have indirect effects on the other individuals that are not readily noticeable or detectable. Parasitism. Parasitism occurs when one individual, the parasites, benefits from another individuals and the host, while harming the host in the process. Parasites feed on host tissues or fluids and can be found within endoparasites or outside or ectoparasites of the host body. Endoparasites means the parasites which lives inside the body of host, and ectoparasites are those parasites which lives in the which lives outside the body of the host. First type of symbiosis is mutualism. Both organisms benefit. So symbiotic relationships when both of the organism benefits. For example, humans and plants. For example, lichens, mosses, and algae. A mutualist relationships is occur when two organisms of different species work together. Lichen, lichens, mosses, and algae, each benefiting from the relationships. Mutualism occur in every aquatic and terrestrial habitat, and that ecologists now believe that almost every species on Earth involved directly or indirectly in one or more of these interactions. And mutualism are crucial to the reproduction and survival of many plants and animals and to nutrient cycle in ecosystem. That's how it supports the process of evolution. Commensalism. One organism benefits, the other isn't helped or harmed. It is the process of commensalism. This is a symbiotic relationship where one organism benefits and the other organism benefits and the other organism is not hurt or helped. For example, the spider needs the plants to hang its web form. So, this is an association between two organisms in which one benefits and other derives neither benefits nor harms. So, epiphyte plants that use their host for aerial support but gain their resources from the atmosphere, and cattle irrigates and the eat insects by grazing cattle, as well as known as the example of commensalism. This is the example of epiphytes. Commensalism is a long-term biological interaction in which members of one species gain benefit while those of the other species neither benefits nor the harms. Parasitism. One organism benefits called parasites and the other is harmed called host. It is a symbiotic relationship where one organism benefits and the other organism is hurt. So, parasitism is an interaction between species which provides energy to one and to determine of the other. The species which is negatively affected is known as the host and is normally not killed by the parasite. The presence or absence of the host species will significantly impact upon the survival of the parasites, and especially as many parasites have a highly specialized niche and can only survive or in a particular host species. All the parasitic plant species are angiosperms, among which parasitism has evolved independently about 12 times. Some examples of parasitic angiosperm families include Balanophoracea or Orobanchaceae and Rafflesiaceae. Although one species of gymnosperm called Paras- Parasitexis has been proposed to be a parasitic. It actually may be a mycoheterotrophs as it appears to involve a fungal symbionts. So, parasitic plants evolved from non parasitic plants and thus underwent an evolutionary transition from autotrophy to the heterotrophy, which may be parietal or complete. Indeed, parasitic plants differ in the extent to which they depend on their host for nutrients. So, students, this is all about the biotic relationships uh, which create their role in the evolution of the in the evolution history, and I hope it is all the terms is clear to you. So students, thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.